Welcome to this session of organizational behavior. In this session, we will be talking about attitudes and job satisfaction. The primary objective of today's session is to talk about attitudes towards any job and also employees' job satisfaction. In order to do that, first we will be looking into the different aspects of attitudes, relationship between attitudes and behavior, and compare contrast the major job attitudes, and eventually look into how employees respond to dissatisfaction towards their respective organizations. So by attitude, we mean some sort of evaluative statements about objects, people, or events, and those statements can be favorable or unfavorable. And this statement, and in this slide we see the different components of attitude towards communicating negative attitude towards a supervisor. So this can be positive as well, about communicating positive feelings and attitudes towards one supervisor or co-workers, but the book talks about the negative one, hence we are talking about it. So at first we are evaluating some scenarios, and based on that, which is the cognitive stage, there can be some effects, and that is related to our feelings. And based on the feeling, there can be some action. And overall, these together can define the different components or the different stages of a human attitude. The earlier research, according to the book, talks in ways attitudes and behaviors are related. According to many researchers, the behavior, any kind of behavior, is followed by different attitudes. If you see some of the attitudes of a person, you can predict the behavior that will be followed. But at the same time, there has been other researcher that talks about, no, it's the human nature that there are different attitudes which conforms to a certain behavior, and people change their attitudes in order to be conformed with a certain behavior. And then also this chapter talks about the dissonance between different sets of human attitude, or the perceived difference between attitude and behavior. In either way, the research has generally concluded that the people seek consistency among their attitudes and between their attitudes and their behavior. It's further explained with the moderating variables, which further explains the importance of the attitude and talks about accessibility. And eventually, the researchers, according to the book, mentions that this attitude and behavior relationship, which is kind of crucial when you are looking into a person's involvement with certain organization or a person-to-person relationship, this attitude behavior relationship is likely to be much stronger if an attitude refers to something which we have direct personal experience with. So if we have a first-hand experience about something, that certainly makes the relationship of these two criteria stronger. So now if we look into the job satisfaction factor, by that we mean a positive feeling about any job resulting from an evaluation of its characteristics. And when we talk about job satisfaction, there are certain other job attitudes to look into. We certainly have to look into job involvement. It's the degree of psychological identification with the job where the perceived performance is important to self-worth. So that's the official definition of it. Ideally, what it means that a person or an employee needs to feel psychologically empowered. They need to believe that they have the ability to control their own work, and they have the importance and recognition for the company they're working for. And that's related to the organizational commitment. because whenever a person can relate him or herself with a certain company or an organization, then he or she will be less dissatisfied, and then they will have the more sense of organizational loyalty, and they will be working and go the extra mile to perform, and eventually that can be a better off situation for the company itself. But at the same time, when we are talking about loyal employees, the organizations themselves also need to show that they are supporting their workers, their employees all the way. And the more they can show that, going out of the way and doing favors beyond the call for duty, that helps to have a better rapport between the workforce and the managers and the overall working environment. And this perception about this organizational support can result in higher organizational citizenship behavior, which means that a person will be working with extra concentration, they will be happy in their workplace, and they will create a better atmosphere where the customers and the services, customers will be happy with the services provided by the employees. A very interesting example of this support by the employer about recognizing the employees for their performance happened in 2004. This example actually is not in the book. I'm just sharing from my online resources. So in 2014, a diamond businessman from India gave away among his top 1,200 employees about 500 cars, 570 very high-priced diamond jewelry sets, and around 200 new flats. And the CEO of this company used his own employer loyalty method, which has been very transparent, to pick these top 1,200 performing employees. And it has been very much evident in the interviews and the coverage afterwards that the employees seem to be very ecstatic and energized by such recognition. We can see in this video that these are the cars which has been given, and then also there are so many employees who have been there present to get the recognition from their CEOs. So what it talks about, these energized, happy employees become further engaged, further involved with much enthusiasm in their job. And definitely engaged employees are passionate about their work and company. So when we are talking about this job satisfaction, when we are talking about involvement of the companies and the loyalty of the loyalty of the employees, this also makes the leeway to talk about how can we measure job satisfaction, because some of the attitudes that we are being talking till now are kind of overlapping each other. So in order to have a better understanding, the recent research actually identifies employees as being enthusiastic stayers, reluctant stayers, enthusiastic leavers, and reluctant leavers, just to make sure that they can put and classify the different kind of workforce into the exact boxes to better understand how within themselves the organizational behavior works. This exhibit 3.2 talks about the different worst jobs in 2013 as far as the job satisfaction is concerned. So in the y-axis we have the different listed jobs, and in the x-axis we are seeing the salary level of this full year income. In order to measure the job satisfaction, there are two approaches that has been mentioned in the book. The first talks about a single global rating. The second one is a summation of job facets. which is related to the different criterias within a certain job, and the measurement is about a person's perception of those criterias within that single job. So if we look into the statistics, over the last 30 years, employees in the US and the other developed countries are generally being happy and satisfied with their job. Saying this, due to the recent economic downturn, most workers, actually more workers, are becoming less satisfied. So this satisfaction level also differ depending on the what are the facets that are involved in the measurement. In this exhibit, it talks about the average job satisfaction level by facets. In the y-axis, we have the percentage that talks about the satisfaction level, and in the x-axis, we are talking about different facets. Overall, if we look into this, we see that the satisfaction level is actually very high. Most of the people are overall happy about their job, content with their job. Saying this, people are kind of very unhappy with their promotion scope, to some extent with their supervision, and definitely in many cases with their payment or the compensation package. This slide talks about the average levels of employee job satisfaction by country. Here in the y-axis, we have the job satisfaction score, and the x-axis represents the different bars, represents the different countries. Here you see Mexico is the one where the workers are the most satisfied with their job, and here in Korea, South Korea, people are less satisfied. So there is an explanation given, which I'm not entirely convinced with by the authors in the book, that talks about that in South Korea, which is one of the most, if not the most connected internet-wise society in the world, where people have access to information about better job facilities available outside their own country or own society. Hence, they're less happy about whatever they have. So they're less content about it. Whereas in Mexico, relatively among the big economies, it has less connectivity and people are less connected. So they're better content with whatever they have. In addition to this access to information, there are other criteria which I think are important to measure, to evaluate a person's level of job satisfaction. There are societal pressure, expectations, the way you have to behave or you need to behave about certain jobs. At the same time, people can have the better expectations about life. Hence, they want to move further down the road. Hence, they want to push for better improvement. Hence, they can be feeling dissatisfied with their jobs. So there are other criteria in addition to access to information about other better job opportunities. That's my opinion when we are looking into different identifying and ranking different countries in. So when we talk about job satisfaction, what are the things that causes a person to be happy or unhappy, satisfied or not so satisfied about certain jobs? So there are research that shows that this kind of job satisfaction is correlated with life satisfaction. Also, a person's own self, a personality, plays a role in job satisfaction. Person who have positive core self-evaluations, who believe in their inner worth and basic competence. Research shows that they are more satisfied with their jobs than those with negative core self-evaluations. And at the same time, it also shows that payment or the salary influences job satisfaction only to a certain point. Higher salary does not always mean that a person is satisfied with his or her job. In this figure, I find it very interesting. We see that in the y-axis we have the percentage of pay satisfaction, and in the x we are talking about payment in US dollar in 2002, the yearly average income. And we see the moment we cross the $40,000 mark, we see that it really does not matter how much a person is making. Their satisfaction level can be either higher or lower. So it's kind of indifferent, the amount of money a person make to make him or her satisfied about the job he's making money from. Now, when we are talking about this satisfaction and dissatisfaction, there are ways we need to communicate that with the managers or the leadership of the company where we are working for. Or when we are managers or employers, we also need to make sure that the employees have the channels to communicate the dissatisfaction and satisfaction per se. Here in this exhibit, we look into the responses of dissatisfaction, which can be in different ways. So the authors here classified it either as active or passive, and both it can be constructive and destructive. So if there is some dissatisfaction and a person wants to talk about it with his or her employee, he or she can be active and raise voice about it in a constructive way and talk about demand change in a transparent way. So that's a very positive move. But at the same time, he or she can be passive and just wait out the rough time in order to be constructive about it and not to question a company's management or leadership because he or she is very loyal to the company himself. So, but if we look into the destructive way to communicate, according to the book, one thing can happen is a dissatisfied employee can just leave the company. But personally, I believe the most destructive one is if you are passive destructive. If you are still staying in the company, but you are not happy with the way the company is treating you, or the company is being run or managed, and you started neglecting the responsibilities you have, because that can have a negative snowball effect. And that can also affect your coworkers, your own self-esteem, and eventually that can have a bad impact on the customers who are related to you, and eventually that can make the company worse off. So these are the things are being explained in these next two slides, where we are talking about the relationship between job satisfaction and job performance. Of course, happy workers are more likely to be more productive, and they will be much better corporate citizens. And definitely we need to make sure that employees are in a better work condition, so that eventually the customers, if it's a service sector or any other related sectors where we are dealing with customers, eventually they need to be feeling the positive vibe from the company, which can only be provided if we have happy and content employees. And when one is satisfied with one's job, definitely he or she will be less absent. They will show up for work, and they will be there for many years, and definitely that will have a longer positive effect on the company. But unfortunately, in many cases, what we have seen is that the managers or the human resources or the leadership per se do not get it, the importance of this job satisfaction. Sometimes they overrate the compensation packages, sometimes they overrate the way they're communicating, they're overconfident about the way they're communicating with the workforce, and they don't listen to the grievances of the workforce, and that can result in tangible negative effects. So if we want to sum it up, our conversation about job satisfactions and attitudes and behaviors, it's very important that we pay attention to our employees' job satisfaction level. It's very crucial to measure employee job attitudes objectively and transparently and at a regular interval. At the same time, a manager, an ideal leader, always should make sure that the employee is satisfied and there is a good match, a good fit between the things that they're performing, they're assigned to perform, and the skill sets they have within themselves. And we also need to make sure that we always do not put everything on a tangible dollar value, because high pay alone is unlikely to create a satisfying work environment. Thank you so much.